Arda Ocal with ESPN, a massive anniversary, the 25th anniversary of the New World Order, the nWo, still one of the hottest things to ever come out of the world of sports entertainment and pro wrestling. And one of the founding members is joining us right now in SportsNation, none other than Big Sexy himself, Kevin Nash. Let's talk about the formation of the nWo, man. Like, I'd love to hear you jump ship from WWE to WCW. You were champion there for a long time. When did the idea of going to another company or just the opportunity to join WCW present itself to you?
Scott Hall was the one that originally made the contact with Diamond Dallas Page, and Barry Bloom was Scott's agent, and he put together a deal memo. So Scott told me that he was leaving and showed me the money that he was getting, and that that Scott had a favored nations in his contract. So I joined. I took Barry on also, and so immediately when I went in and I asked for more money than Scott had originally got, which bumped him up, and. I mean, the money was, I went to Vince and asked him to basically match the deal, because I didn't want to leave, because, at the time WCW was horrible. And, people think we left, and it was the number one. I mean, it was not the number one rated wrestling show. We were. And, but I was at the point, my wife, I made the decision in, I think April. My wife was 6 months. Yeah, right at 6 months pregnant. And it was just like, at that point, I was just looking for financial security more than anything else.
So besides the finances, how much of the creative did you even know? Like, was the nWo or just this infiltration between you and Scott jumping ship from one company to another? Was that even part of the plans or something that you were aware of when you moved to WCW initially?
Yeah, Eric came out to my house, and we went out to a gentleman's club, and we talked business, and he pitched basically the angle, that he kind of told me the origin, that they had done it pretty successfully in Japan with two of the Japanese companies, and so that's pretty much what he pitched it. I thought it was a good idea. The fact that we were coming in 6 days apart was I mean, if Scott and I didn't have a 6-day difference in our contracts, it wouldn't have worked. Scott came in Macon, I came the next week, and then from there we had the build up to Bash at the Beach, who was the third person that we were bringing with us. And Hulk was shooting a movie at the time, and he didn't know if he wanted to join, go to the dark side after all these years or not. And eventually, I mean, actually up till the day of, he was still apprehensive to make the switch, and then he saw the money train leaving, and Hulk's a smart man, so he made the move, and rest is history.
Let me fill in a couple of gaps. When you first heard of this idea, was it an immediate home run in your mind, or did you have any reservations?
I mean, it seemed like it would. I had no idea that it would be what it was, And even that night, like, somebody was asking me, on an interview not too long ago, like, how was the excitement backstage before the match? Like, we hadn't worked, since we'd been there. This was our first match, and I mean, the rings were small. I mean, it was still WCW. It was like, geez. It wasn't. It was. It was packed, but it was it was, we're in Daytona Beach. It wasn't in some giant arena. It was a smaller arena. And, we had a decent match with Macho, Sting, and Lex, and Hulk came down and dropped the leg, and the response we got was great as far as just people throwing things, and I mean, the turn worked, but at that moment right there, did we think that 25 years later we'd be talking about it? No.
So describe those first several months of that nWo run. Like, it seemed like it was an unstoppable freight train, and everyone wanted to know what would happen next. Like, what was it like for you living that?
Well, because we were so involved creatively, and they let us be very violent, and that was one of the things that, Vince was kind of getting away from being violent. And to me, wrestling was sex and violence. And so those are the two things that we, at that point, in the mid 90s, and they let us go. I mean, I think one of the biggest moments was the night they let us come to the ring with aluminum baseball bats. Because I don't care who you are, everybody knows that if you hit somebody with an aluminum baseball bat, it's going to make to do some damage, and it's something that other people weren't doing. So it kind of was a thug life mentality. We were tagging things. The Death Row was kind of rocking the urban vibe, and so we just kind of tagged along that, used some of their taglines. The whole For Life thing was from a Mac 10 track. So basically we just stole some urban some urban culture and put it on wrestling.
I want to ask about celebrities. So obviously, famously, Dennis Rodman, part of the nWo. We know from The Last Dance now that he famously skipped on a NBA Finals practice to go be part of Nitro. I'm curious, maybe there's a story that's not out there that you find funny or endearing from Dennis Rodman's time with the nWo or your interactions with him. Any fun backstage stories of Dennis Rodman with WCW and the nWo?
Yeah, Dennis is just like, I think he's one of the most misunderstood people. Like if you sit down and spend like quality time with him, he's a really quiet, introverted, he's chill. He had Carmen Electra with him. It was just like, and he was on top of the world at that point. And, to get that rub, from the Bulls and the success that they had. I'm a Detroit boy, so I watched Rodman when he was with Pistons. So I was a fan of his. Probably the greatest rebounder for his size ever in the NBA.
So the nWo was around when wrestling was really in the mainstream, right? Attitude Era, but also the nWo, a huge part of that. Like,
we were before the Attitude Era.
Yeah, you guys really set
the tone. They did. What we did was we created the Attitude Era. I've always equated it that we built the Saturn V, and right before we took off, Vince McMahon kicked us off the ramp and said, "Okay, I'll put Austin in the capsule and we'll take it from here." And that's basically what they did. Because they knew we had standards in practice, and Vince just said, "Let's go." And Vince just took everything off. That Val Venus was a porno star with Jenna Jameson, and they just really, they revved it up to where we couldn't. So that was kind of the beginning of the end.
I'm curious if there are any athletes, like there were plenty of athletes and celebrities that got involved with WCW, as we know, even Karl Malone, Kevin Green, etc. But were there any celebrities that surprised you that, you know, you maybe saw in an airport or somewhere, some appearance or something like that, even at an arena, that kind of threw up the nWo sign and you were like, oh wow,
Yeah,
you know,
we actually were like the running gag during the Cable Ace Awards. The nWo was there. I think we kidnapped Drew Carey or something, who was hosting it. But I mean, before it started, there was an open bar, which we were told not to go to, but somehow Scott and I didn't listen. Imagine that. And yeah, we were definitely well received. Like people were watching. I remember we did the NAPTI, and they had all the different Turner entities, and it's like our line was like, out the building, which was and people that don't know the backstory of it. The other tower, the Turner hierarchy, they hated us. No matter what we did, we were always the redheaded stepchild. They hated wrestling, but it was dear to Ted because it pulled him through at the beginning when he started the Superstation. He always had wrestling. So yeah, it was a lot of they'd spend $25 million on some horrifying movie that they originally would produce that would do a 0.9, and we were doing 5.7s for 3 hours every Monday, and they were bitching because on their books we were losing money, but your revenue at that point in time was your pay-per-view, and Turner Home Entertainment was where the pay-per-view revenue went to. It didn't go to WCW. It went to Turner Home Entertainment. So basically, we were a shell company. Mm-hmm.
So this Sunday, you have a interview with Stone Cold Steve Austin on Peacock Broken Skull Sessions in celebration of nWo Week, 25 years, the anniversary of the nWo. Let me leave you with this question. If there's one memory, it doesn't have to be the formation, it could be anything that just happened during the nWo era that sticks with you the most. What is it and why?
I mean, I guess when we did like 7, I think it was 7 Mondays in a row that we did nitros, and we did them from dome shows. We did it about, I think it was like, we did it from the Superdome, the RCA Dome, the Alamo Dome, the Georgia Dome, the Astrodome. We did like these dome shows, and they did like 30, 40,000 people every show that we did. And I just said to myself, like, and this is the first time that they'd never put on the marquee, who was fighting, it was just Nitro was all they were selling. They were selling the fact that it was Nitro and that Raw that the nWo would be there. So I mean, to me, it kind of gave me the feel that we were, had left the arena and went to the stadium, like we were drawing stadium crowds, and I just, kind of felt like a rock star for a split minute. that was huge. It was huge to walk in and and to see those crowds and to know that you were instrumental in drawing them.
Kevin Nash joining us here on ESPN and SportsNation. Kev, really appreciate your time. And all these years later, we're still talking about the nWo, if you can believe it.
And you know what? They still sell those T-shirts, about 100,000 of them a quarter. So get out there and get your T-shirts. all you guys, all you guys out there in those gray NWO shirts, get your new one. Happy 25th.
100,000 a quarter. That's incredible. Still today. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Holy moly. My goodness. So nostalgia hits hard, Kevin.
You know what though, man? It's just it's one of those things where it's just whoever put that logo. That's one of the most gimmicked, copied logos that you'll ever see. I mean, that is the most. I see a shirt every day of my life. I see a shirt that has that exact same 3 letters box with whatever it is. I mean, it's just. But there's only one original. So.
Right. And you were one of the founding members. Kev, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.